I'm going to ask you to go ahead and mute your microphones now, if you will, just to make sure that our video is accurate. And off we go. The title of this series is called the Guide Me series, and you can find out more about it on my website. My website is just my name, toddbraschler.com. You might be asking the question, guide me where? I don't know you. I don't know what your intentions are, but know that my heart and my passion is directly to understand, if not what we call excavate, God's clear vision and passion for you. And that's the whole purpose of this entire effort with these individual leaders as well as our time together today. If God has a vision and a passion for you, how do we wrap our mind and our head around what God has for us? This is, I said, 12 life-changing topics from working with pastors and Christian business leaders these last 24 years. That effort on my website, you'll see, is called a visionary communicator. This is a one-on-one investment. It is not a program. There are no books to read. There's no assessments. There's no labels to put on you when we're all said and done. This is all about what is God's desire? What is God's purpose and passion for me? And our endeavor is to model everything after Jesus, not after me or anyone else. We've had 3 sessions together for those that have been a part of this journey. The first one was all about how much of me is leading me. The second is a location of my personal will, and last month. And then this month, our title is going to be Palms Forward and Palms Backward Perspective. This is the way I've chosen to receive and understand the world as it comes into my life, how I dictate it, the level of criteria I'm availing myself to make decisions and setting direction for my life, and if you're a leader, for the life of other people as well. If you missed last month or any of the last couple of lessons, this is the website link. You can also take a cell phone quick and scan that QR code. It'll take you to that site. It's called the Guide Me series on my website, and you can listen to the others. They're 20 and 30 minutes long, not too awful long at all. And they're meant as conversation starters. In 30 minutes, I don't have time to go through everything I would like to, but this is what the page looks like. Here's the first topic, and there's a box at the bottom of each column, and it'll give you a chance to open that up and take a listen. All right. Title of our time together today is Something God Led Me to Create. It is not something I've read in a book anywhere. I tried to figure out how can I illustrate what God is saying to me? How can I physically demonstrate something that was an insight I believe God gave me, and it began to change my life? Now, I want to tell you a quick story. I grew up in St. James, Missouri. My dad was the senior pastor of the Church of God in St. James. And when we moved there from Tampa, Florida. And Tampa, Florida was a place, obviously, as you have ever been there before, that was astounding. It had every kind of amenity known to mankind. And then my dad, in his great wisdom, decided to move us to a town that was smaller than the middle school I was attending. The whole town, 2,679 people in St. James, Missouri, right on I-44. If you've ever seen the School of the Mines up in Rolla, Missouri, it's about 10, 15 miles from there. Well, my dad leads us to this community, and in the midst of that, well, let me just say that it was a bit of a shock. Everything rolled up in that town at about 7 p.m., and if you were hungry, if you wanted entertainment, you had to hop in the car and drive to a whole new community because there was no opportunity there. And I'll never forget the year, I was about a sophomore in high school when St. James decided to create a huge restaurant there called, you get it now, fine dining, Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut moved to St. James, Missouri, and you would have thought Disney World showed up. It was the most incredible uh, epiphany to this town that you could have all the things that a restaurant that stays open after 7 p.m. could offer. I'll never forget 2 weeks later when we could finally get in the place, my dad took my siblings, my sister and two younger brothers, and my mom and dad. We all went and sat in a booth in Pizza Hut. And my sister sat with my parents on one side, and I sat on the other with my two brothers. And this conversation began to take place. The conversation behind my parents was a family that were talking about all the amazing that's coming because this Pizza Hut has come to town. Oh my goodness, they said you can be in youth group or be in church on Sunday night and have a pizza delivered to your house before you get home. You can come by here afterwards. This is the only place we've ever had that has a salad buffet. And I mean, they went on and on and on about the potential. You could be at a ball game and have a pizza delivered to you in the stadium if you wanted it. Stadium. It was a goat ranch for a stadium. But anyway, we called it a stadium. And it, I mean, it just changed the entire life after 5:30 p.m. for this entire community. And this family was trying to understand and realize all the potential. You could bring your youth group over here after church, after a ball practice. You could have a pizza delivered to you at school any time of the day. You could drive through. Now, this was the first time, this was in the 70s. This was the first time this community had ever had anything with a drive through in that community. That was the booth behind my mom and dad. They could not say enough good about this new restaurant. Right behind us, my two brothers and I, was another family. Same restaurant, same salad bar, same pizza. But the way they processed this experience was completely different than what I was hearing from the other booth. The booth behind us was saying, well, I mean, it is so loud in here. You can go to Rolla and you can hear yourself think in a restaurant over there. And they shred their lettuce over there. It's not like this chunked lettuce they have here. And it seems like the place in Rolla puts more pepperoni on your pizza than this place does. And, you know, if you're going to really have a date, can you really call it a date and stay in town? I mean, really, to take a girl on a special experience, you got to go out of town for that. And they went on and on and on. It seemed like the only perspective they had on this restaurant was what they had already experienced. And it was more of a comparison conversation than it was a reality check of what's new in this community. I found that incredibly interesting, even as a 16-year-old kid, listening to these two families process the same exact circumstance in two completely different ways. Through these years and working with people like you guys, I've come to realize that there is also a physical, emotional, spiritual place that I can receive the newness of the things that come into my life, and I can process them however I choose. I can use the insight of what might be to be my understanding, or what's probably more natural to us, I can use what I know as my reference, my criteria for talking about anything that's new. Now, how do you know where you land? If a new person walks up to you and someone says, hey, you need to meet this person, sometimes our point of reference as, have I ever known this person before? Have I ever met them before? Do we have anything in common? Do they have any interests or hobbies like I have? Because if they don't, I don't know what we're going to talk about. That could be a perspective when you meet a new person. A person standing right next to you, though, meeting the same person might say, here's a potential relationship. Here's a potential friend. Here's a potential conversation. I have no idea what God wants to do with it, but I'm going to receive this person and define this experience based on what could be, what might be, and not simply compare them to who I've known, somebody who looks like them. Hey, do you have anything in common with my history and so forth? This is what I'm referring to as palms backward and palms forward. It's an interesting command in Scripture, if you'll look with me, to focus where God intended us to focus from the beginning. God intended us to focus in a certain way. Look with me at Isaiah chapter 43, 18 to 21. A prophecy to the prophet Isaiah says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do not perceive it. I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." Second part, verse 20 says, "The wild animals honor me, the jackals and the owls, because I provide water in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland, to give drink to my people, my chosen, the people I formed for myself, that they may proclaim my praise." A prophecy given to God's people through the prophet Isaiah. And in this prophecy, it is saying, now listen, if you're going to understand me, you must receive what I have for you, whether it's a new relationship, it's a new experience, it's a new challenge, it's a new difficulty. What would it be like to process it through what God might have for us and not just the world we know? Unmute your mics a minute and let's discuss this for just a second. What challenge does this sound like to you, and what might be different for you if, in fact, this might be a different way? As you receive the new world coming into your life, whether it's a friendship or a challenge or an opportunity, what would be different possibly for you to think about it, processing it from out in front of you, as we're calling it, palms forward versus the typical way? I'm going to try to find something I can relate to in my past to somehow figure this opportunity or this person out. What's the challenge that you see coming your way with that kind of an approach? Well, we're all there. That's
I could see it as you're allowing opportunities and you're allowing God to work things out without your past really being something that inhibits it or affects it in a negative or a positive way either.
yeah, yeah,
That's good.
yeah. This is a real easy tendency because looking backward really does make anything that even God would bring to me about me.
Mm.
If I can't relate to it,
Mhm.
well, then I guess I'm not going to understand it at all. Um, this is a really interesting challenge for us because what it's simply saying is, would I be willing to see the world around me the way God does? Would I be willing to see the potential God has for me the way He does? Would I be willing to stay within His perspective and not just my own? Now, I don't know if this makes sense to you or not, but I'm here to tell you that this is probably one of the greatest challenges I have faced personally and I face in trying to lead other people because our tendency is to take whatever is new and we don't have any idea what it's about and try to somehow make sense of it by what we've experienced already. This, as we will see in a later lesson in this series, can easily turn into my identity as well,
Mhm.
where I become so self-sufficient on myself that I can find myself even trying to understand some place or some situation that God has led me to. I try to understand it through my own reference, my own understanding, my own experience. And there's another byproduct to this I want to warn you about if you've never heard of this idea before. Satan uses this in such a powerful way because he makes us feel accountable for things we've never even heard of yet. How many times have you heard something new and guilt comes over and shame comes over us and we say, I should have known that already. I should have done that back there. Forgetting that Sometimes what we're hearing as new information or new teaching, it's the first time we've ever heard it.
Mhm.
But Satan will say, "Oh, you should have known that. You're old enough, or you've had enough experience," but that comes as a result of making ourself the reference, meaning my experiences and my past, my successes and my failures, they're my whole reference for trying to understand anything new. Here's another aspect of this. If I'm a palms backward person, any new teaching is often received as criticism of who I am, not encouragement,
Mhm.
not purpose, future focused direction, but criticism. We hear something new. Pastors who speak in front of people all the time, I want to encourage you to give your people a heads up and teach them how God intends us to listen. That scripture we just read said, forget about the things of the past, focus on what is yet to come. Don't you find it interesting that in Jesus's first sermon, on the Sermon on the Mount in the book of Matthew, we see that the message of Jesus had a repetitious phrase involved in that message. And anytime we see Jesus repeating a phrase over and over again, heads up, he's trying to help us remember what he is saying. And in the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes, as he was teaching people and he was establishing himself and his message to the world at large, he used a phrase over and over again. You know it. He said, "For you shall." Blessed are you if you have this situation, for they shall be comforted. They shall find mercy. Jesus was already saying, I know you've been in captivity. I know you have been tortured. I know you have been mistreated. I know that you're being mistreated right now. I know that the Roman Empire is persecuting us. I know that those who are against the faith of Jesus and the faith of God the Father, even the religious leaders of your day are persecuting you. I know that. But don't you find it interesting that Jesus did not say one word about all those challenges in his first sermon? Instead, he said, "For you shall." In other words, if you're going to follow me, look forward. My leadership and my wisdom and my insight, if not my enlightenment, are not going to be found in a personal study of your difficulties. If there's anything that I'm finding I might hold against Christian counseling today, is that most people I know in Christian counseling are becoming very self-aware, but I question and wonder if they're becoming in a greater way God-aware. We're studying and going through difficulty, and our counselors often can lead us to talk about difficulty and understand ourself and try to explain our childhood and so forth. I'm sure there's great wisdom there, friends. I'm not poo-pooing the whole thing. I'm just saying, if I'm going to lead and counsel people like Jesus, is it more important for them to understand their mistakes and why? Or is it in a greater importance to understand God's purpose and reason for that happening in their life and his direction and will moving forward? The challenge this week, what would it be like to be a person who disciplines myself to only use criteria that is in front of me to understand anything new God allows into my life? A challenge, a person, a difficulty, a criticism, an opportunity, a lesson. How can I process it through? How might this enlighten me as I move forward rather than I should have known that, or I'm an idiot. I've been doing it wrong all this time. Sometimes we think that the Bible is one of those rule books that is intended to enlighten us to feel worse about the person we are. And yet the Bible was intended to help us undo who we are so we could actually realize who he's calling us to be. This is what I'm calling palms forward. There's lots more to talk about with this, but today I wanted to encourage, challenge, introduce this idea to you. This is so important. I'm writing a book about this topic. It's so important that I spend weeks and months with leaders transitioning, transforming the way we think. When somebody criticizes us, it's easy to process that through, yeah, I've failed at that 5 times already. What would it be like to receive a criticism as an insight? Maybe I'm where God is wanting to lead me next.
I kind of got a little preview of this lesson yesterday, not on purpose, but we were talking about something completely different. And uh, I said, I wish that I would have known that when I was interviewed for my position here at the church, because I would have answered it differently. And then Todd said, I'm going to caution you because you're thinking palms backward, not palms forward. So yeah, I had a preview of what this lesson was going to be.
Yeah. And did it stick?
I think I remembered it. Yeah.
I'm just teasing. Well, I appreciate you guys' time today. We said we're going to stick to 30 minutes, and I got about 2 minutes left just to lead you to some resources. Obviously, you can't take a big topic like this and completely clarify it in the time frame that we've allotted and want to ask you for today. So, I want to lead you to two links that would perhaps add as future resources for you. First of all, this is the link, the QR code to the page Visionary Communicator. This is modeled after Jesus. It's based on how did Jesus communicate his leadership and vision. The second pillar this is built on is how did Jesus define vision compared to the way the corporate world has taught the church to define it. It is very different, by the way. And the third pillar this is built on is how did Jesus move people? How did Jesus lead people to make commitment, to make sacrifice, to follow him? What was the technique that Jesus used? And we're going to define it as the difference between trying to inspire people and aspiring people. That's some of the focus of this work. If you want to know more about that, you can click on that web address, or you can scan the QR code. And lastly, this is the announcement for the next Guide Me series topic. It's going to be next month on the 16th at 1:30 p.m. And the title is going to be very interesting. Voids is the title. What is my first reach to fill them in my life?
Mm.
How we fill the empties or voids we experience in our lives can often begin to define us. And we're going to talk in this next week, introduce a topic to you of how many empties or vacuums do you experience in your life, from loneliness to depression to hunger. How do you fill the empty in your life? How did God create us actually with empties? But his plan was that we would be seeking him for the fulfillment of them and not anything else.